I was kicked out of my own startup. My wife betrayed me, and I got revenge by shutting Neurosync down. I still remember the moment like it happened in slow motion. I walked through the towering glass doors of Neurosync, my company, my empire, only to find a line of security guards waiting for me. Their blank stares were unreadable, but their stance told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't welcome here anymore. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe one of the junior executives had overstepped their authority. Maybe Lillian had forgotten to inform them that the CO founder was coming in today. But then I saw her. Lillian stood at the head of the long conference table in the executive boardroom, flanked by her hand-picked board of directors. She didn't flinch when our eyes met. No hesitation, no guilt, just cold calculation. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. A security guard stepped forward, their presence thick with unspoken authority. "Mr. Carter, you need to come with us," they said. The words rang in my ears, but I barely registered them. My wife, the woman I built this company with, the woman I loved, was standing there with her arms folded, her lips curled into something between amusement and indifference. The boardroom was silent, a sea of expensive suits and carefully practiced neutrality. Some of them glanced away, pretending to be engrossed in their laptops. Others sat perfectly still, their gazes locked on me like I was a specimen under a microscope. Lillian's voice cut through the tension like a razor. "Oh, you're nothing without me," she said. The silence turned into a vacuum. I heard the words. I felt them. But it took a second for my mind to process that she had actually said them. I blinked. What? She didn't hesitate, didn't waver. "You're nothing without me," she repeated, her voice calm. "This company is mine, always has been, and now so is its future. You've become a liability, Marcus. It's time to move on." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. My fingers twitched at my sides, every muscle in my body coiling. I wanted to shout, to argue, to remind her that Neurosync wouldn't even exist without me. But I didn't. I had seen this look in her eyes before, the look she gave when she was sealing a deal, when she was crushing the opposition. Except this time, I was the opposition. I exhaled through my nose, forcing my pulse to steady. "Oh, you really think you can just erase me?" I asked. Her lips twitched upward. "I already have." The guards moved in, stepping closer, their unspoken command clear: leave or be forced out. My mind raced. I could argue, make a scene, demand an explanation in front of the board. But that's exactly what she wanted me to do. To beg, to lash out, to prove her point. Instead, I smiled. Not the kind of smile she expected. Not the smile of a man who had just lost everything. No, it was the kind of smile you give when you're holding a secret that no one else knows. Lillian didn't know about the patent. She didn't know that I held the rights to Neurosync's most valuable asset, the AI system that powered its entire ecosystem. So, I turned on my heel, straightened my suit, and walked toward the exit. But before I stepped out, I paused, glanced over my shoulder, and looked her straight in the eye. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," I said. She let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Get him out of here," she ordered. The guards flanked me as I made my way down the hall, their presence unnecessary. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to plead. No, I was going to burn everything she built to the ground. The moment I stepped out of the glass doors, the morning sun hit my face, warm and blinding. A normal man would have felt defeated, humiliated. But me? I felt something entirely different, liberated. Lillian thought she had won. She thought she had stripped me of everything. She had no idea. By the time she realized what I had done, it would already be too late. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly, creeping like water, finding its way through the cracks. You don't even realize how deep it's gone until one day the foundation collapses, and you're left wondering how you didn't see it sooner. Looking back, I should have known. I should have seen the way Lillian operated, how she calculated every move long before she made it. But back then I wasn't her enemy. I was her partner. At least that's what I thought. I remember the first time I met her. She wasn't the ruthless executive the world knows today. She wasn't standing on the cover of business magazines flashing that perfect, manufactured smile. No, back then she was hungry, desperate even. Her startup, Neurosync, was failing. It had all the branding, the funding, the marketing, but none of the actual substance. Investors were losing faith. The product was a mess. She had connections, sure, but connections don't mean much when you don't have anything worth selling. And that's where I came in. I was a software engineer, a nobody really. Just another tech guy who had spent years pouring his soul into something that no one else understood. An AI-driven system far more advanced than anything on the market. A neural network that could optimize, adapt, and rebuild itself in real time. It was a passion project, something I had built in my dimly lit apartment, coding through the nights when everyone else was asleep. I didn't care about fame. I didn't care about money. I just wanted to build something that worked. And Lillian, she saw it. I was at a small tech summit, barely managing to scrape enough money together for a ticket. While others were pitching flashy, hollow ideas, I was sitting at a booth with a cheap laptop, showing what my system could do. I remember the moment her eyes locked onto the screen. She didn't approach right away. She watched, waited, and when the crowd around me thinned, she finally walked up, arms crossed, voice smooth and deliberate. "You built this?" she asked. It wasn't an empty question. It was assessing, sizing me up. I nodded. "Then we need to talk," she said. That conversation lasted hours. She asked real questions, not just about the software, but about me, what I wanted, what my end goal was. And I, like a fool, told her the truth. "I don't care about recognition," I said. "I just want this to be used." She smiled. Not the polite kind, not the thank you for your time kind. It was the kind of smile that seizes opportunity. "You have the brains," she said. "I have the resources. Together we could change everything." It was the perfect pitch. She told me about Neurosync, how her company had the infrastructure but was missing the backbone, the technology that would make it truly revolutionary. "We can build something unstoppable," she said. "But I need you." I believed her. And for the first few years, it felt like we were equals. We worked insane hours side by side, refining the software, pitching to investors, signing deals that turned Neurosync into something massive. Somewhere along the way, the professional partnership became something deeper. We got married before the company even hit its first billion. It felt natural. It felt right. It felt like we were sealing our commitment not just to each other, but to the empire we were building. Neurosync wasn't just a company. It was our child, the thing we had built together, the thing we were going to share forever. Or so I thought. The warning signs weren't obvious at first. Little things. Lillian started doing press interviews alone. She brushed off my presence in meetings, letting investors believe I was just some behind-the-scenes engineer instead of her co-founder. And then the language changed. It stopped being our company. It became her company. "When I started Neurosync, I knew we were going to revolutionize the industry," she said in a board meeting. I actually laughed. "Lillian, we started it," I corrected. She had just smiled. "Of course, you know what I mean," she said. I brushed it off. It was just wording. What did it matter? We were a team. We were married. Why fight over something so small? But small things add up over time. They turn into something bigger. And then one day, you wake up and realize you don't recognize the person sleeping next to you. The first major deal she signed without me was when I should have seen it coming, a multi-million-dollar partnership with a government agency. I found out through a press release. The official company website had stopped listing me as a CO founder. My title had been reduced to lead developer. The board no longer consulted me before major decisions. Lillian had quietly restructured everything so that I had no real power left. And then came the biggest mistake of my life. "We should consolidate everything under one name," she had said, swirling wine in her glass as we sat in our penthouse. "It makes us stronger, more stable." "What do you mean?" I asked, already feeling something cold settle in my stomach. "Merging our shares," she said. "The board thinks it would be more efficient." "Why would they think that?" I pressed. She waved a hand dismissively. "Legal stuff, nothing serious. We'll still share everything, Marcus. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours." I should have questioned it. I should have asked why she was suddenly so eager to put everything under her control, but I didn't. Because I trusted her. Because I was a fool. And so I signed the documents. I signed away my stake in the company, my official ownership, my control. And that was the moment everything shifted. Lillian smiled as she kissed me on the cheek. "See, we're a team. This just makes things cleaner," she said. I remember holding the pen a second too long before setting it down. Something in the back of my mind told me I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. And I had, because from that moment on, I wasn't her partner. I was just an employee, a replaceable asset. And soon, she would make that very clear. Betrayal is a strange thing. It doesn't always come in a single dramatic moment. Sometimes it builds like a slow-moving storm, creeping up in the background until it's too late to run for cover. By the time I realized what Lillian had done, I was already drowning in it. She had taken everything, the credit, the control, the company. She had rewritten history, stripping my name from Neurosync's legacy, transforming me from co-founder to just another engineer. But what she didn't realize What no one at that board table realized was that I had seen it coming, and I had prepared for it. When I first built Neurosync, I wasn't thinking about power. I wasn't thinking about boardroom battles or executive takeovers. I was thinking about the technology, the thing I had spent years perfecting in my small apartment, surviving on caffeine and sheer obsession. It wasn't just software, it was a living system, an AI-driven network capable of self-adaptation. And because I knew how fragile the tech world was, how quickly companies could shift, partnerships could break, and alliances could turn into wars, I built something extra, something hidden, a kill switch. Not a backdoor, not some dramatic Hollywood-style shut-everything-down button. No, this was a patent filed under my name. A legally ironclad document that ensured that no matter how big Neurosync became, no matter who tried to claim ownership of it, the core of its software, its brain, its beating heart, belonged to me. The patent covered every major algorithm that made Neurosync unique. Without it, the company had no product. Without it, every contract, every agreement they had with investors and clients was worthless. I had filed it in secrecy long before Neurosync hit its first major funding round. Not out of paranoia, but out of caution. I knew how this industry worked. I had seen too many inventors, too many engineers robbed of their own creations. I wasn't about to let that happen to me. But even after all that planning, I had hoped, really hoped, I would never have to use it. That changed the day Lillian ordered security to escort me out of my own company. I should have been furious. I should have fought. I should have shouted across that boardroom, reminded them that I was the reason they were even sitting in those overpriced leather chairs. But I didn't, because I knew something they didn't. So when the security guards escorted me out, I didn't resist. I didn't beg. I didn't even look back. I walked out with the calm of a man who knew exactly what was coming next. As I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from my personal email, patent confirmed, renewal approved. I smiled. Lillian had spent years erasing me from Neurosync's history. She had rewritten the story, cutting me out like I was just some disposable extra in her rise to power. She thought she had won. She thought I was gone. But what she didn't know was that I owned the one thing she couldn't steal from me, and now I was going to use it. The first strike, revoking their rights. I didn't waste any time. That night, as I sat in my apartment with a glass of whiskey in one hand and my laptop in the other, I did what Lillian never saw coming. I revoked Neurosync's right to use my patented technology. It took 5 minutes, a simple legal submission, a few lines of text, a confirmation email, and just like that, Neurosync, the billion-dollar company my wife had stolen from me, no longer had a product. The next morning, it started. The first call came from an old colleague, someone who had been loyal to me before Lillian started restructuring everything to squeeze me out. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" he asked. "Good morning to you too," I said, sipping my coffee. "Neurosync's AI is locked. We're getting notifications saying the company no longer has legal rights to the system. Clients are calling, saying they can't access their platforms. The whole thing is shutting down. What the hell did you do?" I smiled, reminding them who built it. Then the news started spreading. First internally, engineers scrambling, IT teams frantically trying to restore access, thinking it was just some system glitch. Then the board found out. Investors started demanding answers. And finally, Lillian found out. At 6:07 in the morning, my phone rang. Lillian. I let it ring once, twice, then finally I answered. "Marcus," she snapped. No greeting, no fake warmth, just panic. "Something's wrong with the system. We can't access anything. The board is losing their minds. I know you did something. Tell me what the hell is happening." I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the rare sound of fear in her voice. "Good morning, Lillian," I said. "How's your day going?" "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "The AI is rejecting every executive login. We can't run updates. We can't process external requests. If we don't fix this, we're going to lose millions." "What did you do?" I let a slow smile spread across my face. "Nothing personal, sweetheart, just business." She exhaled sharply. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth on the other end. "Marcus, whatever you did, undo it now." I took a slow sip of my coffee. Silence. And then softer, more dangerous, she asked, "You think you can take the company back?" I let out a short laugh. "No, Lillian," I said. "I don't need to take it back. I just needed to remind you who really owns it." The silence stretched longer this time because now she understood. She had spent years building an empire on a stolen foundation, and I had just pulled the ground out from beneath her feet. I lowered my voice, letting my words sink in. "Tell the board I said hello." Then I hung up. By the time she landed in her office, The damage was done. The system was in lockdown. Clients were pulling contracts. Stockholders were dumping shares. And Lillian, the woman who thought she had beaten me, was finally realizing the truth. She had spent years trying to erase my name from Neurosync's history. Now I was going to erase Neurosync from existence, brick by brick, line by line, until there was nothing left but ashes. I didn't go home that night. I had no reason to. The penthouse Lillian and I had once shared felt more like a museum now, a carefully curated display of her success, where my presence had been reduced to an afterthought. No, I needed to be somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere where I could think, where I could plan. So, I drove to the one place that was still undeniably mine, a small private office in a nondescript building downtown. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't luxurious, but it was functional. More importantly, it was where I had stored everything Lillian thought she had taken from me. I powered up my laptop, the familiar glow of the screen illuminating the dark room. The hum of the cooling fans filled the silence as I typed in the login credentials for my personal development server, a server Lillian didn't know existed. The moment I gained access, I exhaled. The patent files were still there, untouched, exactly where I had left them. Lillian had spent years convincing herself that Neurosync belonged to her, that she was its architect, its mastermind, its sole ruler. But she had made a fatal mistake. She had forgotten who built it from the ground up, and now she was about to find out exactly what that meant. The first strike, revoking the patent, wasn't difficult. It took less than 10 minutes, a simple legal submission, a few keystrokes, a final confirmation click. And with that, Neurosync's biggest asset, the AI system that powered its entire ecosystem, was no longer legally theirs to use. I leaned back in my chair, watching as the system updated in real time. The software that had once been the foundation of Lillian's empire was now locked away, its licensing removed, its core functionality restricted. For the moment, Neurosync would still run as normal. But in a few hours, when the system automatically refreshed, everything would change. And Lillian? She had no idea. At 6:07 in the morning, the first wave of panic hit. The phone rang. I didn't even need to check the caller ID. Lillian. I let it ring once, twice, then finally I picked up. Her voice was frantic, her usual icy composure nowhere to be found. Marcus, she snapped. No greeting, no pretense, just pure panic. Something's wrong with the system. We can't access anything. The board is losing their minds. I know you did something. Tell me what the hell is happening. I smiled. This was a new tone from her. Gone was the smug, untouchable CEO who had ordered me out of her boardroom. This was a woman desperate for answers. Good morning, Lillian, I said, leaning back in my chair. How's your day going? Cut it, Marcus, she snapped. I don't have time for this. The AI is rejecting every executive login. We can't push updates. We can't access the back end. And the clients... She stopped herself, exhaling sharply. Fix it. I let the silence stretch between us, long enough for her to start doubting, to start realizing that she was no longer in control. Then finally, I said, I revoked your rights. For a second, she didn't speak. I could practically hear her processing what I had just said. You what? She whispered. You heard me, I said, my voice calm. Neurosync no longer has legal rights to use my technology. She let out a sharp breath, like she had just been punched in the stomach. You can't do that, she said. I chuckled. Actually, I can. And I did. The silence on the other end of the line stretched longer this time. Then, finally, she hissed, You're bluffing. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Check your system logs, Lillian, I said smoothly. Check your client contracts. Check the patents you thought you owned. I waited, listened. She wasn't speaking, but I knew exactly what was happening. She was scrolling through her files, refreshing her dashboards, trying desperately to find a way out of the reality that was now sinking in. And then it hit her. You son of a... I smiled. Now, Lillian, no need for name-calling. This is just business, right? Her breathing was sharp, uneven. Do you think you can take the company back? She asked, her voice softer, more dangerous. Oh, no, I said simply. I don't want it back. I just wanted to remind you who really owns it. Another long silence, and then, softer, more dangerous still, she said, If you don't undo this, you'll regret it. I laughed. Lillian, you stole everything from me. My company, my work, my name. You erased me, and you thought I was just going to disappear. I let my voice drop lower. Oh no, Lillian, you're the one who's about to disappear. And then I hung up. By 7 in the morning, the full collapse began. By the time Lillian made it into her office, the damage was already done. The system had locked them out completely. Client requests were denied, software updates frozen, the AI unresponsive. Every function that had made Neurosync a billion-dollar empire was now a corpse in a suit. The board of directors scrambled for answers, but there were none. And the investors? The moment they realized Neurosync had no legal claim to its own software, they bailed. Stock prices plummeted, lawsuits started piling up. By noon, news outlets were already reporting the crisis. Tech giant Neurosync faces unprecedented shutdown amid patent dispute. CEO Lillian Carter scrambles to recover as company's core technology is revoked. For years, Lillian had painted herself as the visionary, the genius, the sole architect of Neurosync's success. Now, the world was finally seeing the truth. At 10 in the morning, the board's last attempt came. My phone rang again. Not Lillian this time. The board. They were panicked, desperate, trying to negotiate, trying to fix what had already been destroyed. Marcus, one of them, started, his voice strained but forced into professional neutrality. "We need to talk." "I bet you do," I said. "Whatever personal grievances you have against Lillian." I cut him off with a laugh. "Personal grievances? You mean like getting thrown out of my own company, having my work stolen, being erased from history?" Silence. Then finally, "What do you want?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then calmly I said, "Nothing. I just wanted you all to know what it feels like to lose everything." And with that, I ended the call. As the chaos unfolded, I sat back and watched. Lillian had spent years rewriting the past. Now she was watching her future disintegrate. And the best part? This was just the beginning. There's a specific kind of silence that follows a disaster. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of waiting, but the silence of realization. The moment when people stop fighting, stop denying, and finally understand that they've lost. That's the silence I woke up to. The night before, I had gone to bed early, sleeping better than I had in months. I knew what was coming. I knew what the morning would bring. I let it happen naturally. I didn't check my phone. I didn't refresh the news. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat in my kitchen, made myself a slow, careful cup of coffee, and waited. And then, at exactly 6:07 in the morning, my phone rang. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring once, twice, then finally I picked up, and there it was. Lillian's voice, frantic, stripped of every ounce of confidence. "Marcus," she snapped, her breath uneven. No greeting, no fake pleasantries, just panic. "What the hell did you do?" I took a slow sip of my coffee before responding. "Good morning, Lillian," I said. "How's your day going?" She ignored me. "The system is down, Marcus. Everything is rejecting our credentials. We can't log in. We can't run updates. The AI isn't responding. Clients are calling, demanding answers. I know you did something. Tell me how to fix it." There it was. Not undo it. Not you can't do this. Not yet, at least. First, she wanted to understand. She wanted to grasp just how bad it was before she figured out how to clean it up. That was Lillian's way. She never panicked until she had all the information. "Fix it," I repeated, feigning confusion. "I don't work for Neurosync anymore, remember? You made sure of that." "Marcus," she said, her voice breaking. "Oh wait," I cut her off. "Maybe you should check the legal department. They should have an update for you." The sharp inhale on the other end of the line told me she had already checked, and she didn't like what she found. "You revoked the patent," she whispered. I smiled. "That's right." A long silence. I waited, giving her time to sit in it, to process the fact that she had just lost everything. "But you can't do this," she said. There it was, the bargaining stage. "Actually," I said, "I can, and I did." "You're sabotaging the company, Marcus," she snapped, her voice breaking. "Do you know how much damage this is doing? How much money is on the line?" "Oh, I'm well aware," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I built the damn thing, remember?" Another silence, and then, softer, more dangerous, she said, "If you don't undo this, you'll regret it." I laughed a little and let her words hang in the air. "Let me remind you of something," I said, my voice calm, measured, deadly. "You stole everything from me. My company, my work, my name. You erased me, threw me out like I was nothing." I let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. "Did you really think I was just going to disappear?" Her breath hitched just for a second. She had nothing left to say. "Tell the board I said hello," I said, and then I hung up. I didn't check my phone after that. I didn't need to. By the time I finished my second cup of coffee, I knew exactly what was happening at Neurosync headquarters. Full-blown chaos. The system was in complete lockdown. Every executive-level login was rejected. Every internal function disabled. The AI frozen, updates blocked. Everything that had made Neurosync the industry leader was useless. And the worst part? Clients were noticing. The companies that Neurosync had signed multi-million-dollar contracts with were now realizing that their systems were failing. Investors, once blindly confident in Lillian's leadership, were starting to panic. By 8:15 in the morning, the company's stock had dropped 18%. By 8:30, that number had doubled. By 9 in the morning, investors were already pulling out. The board was in a frenzy. They had put their faith in Lillian, believing she was the genius behind Neurosync's success. Now they were seeing the truth. And Lillian? She was watching her empire collapse in real time. At 9:30 in the morning, the board's first move came. My phone rang again. Not Lillian this time, one of the board members. I let it ring. I wanted them to stew in it. Finally, I answered. Marcus, the voice on the other end, was strained, careful, measured. We seemed to have encountered a situation. I smirked. Oh, don't say. The system is down, he continued. So I've heard. A long pause. Then, we need your help. There it was. The first crack in their arrogance. Oh, you need my help, I repeated. That's interesting because just last week you all let Lillian push me out like I was some junior engineer. Now suddenly I'm important? We can negotiate, the voice said quickly. We're willing to restore your position, bring you back as… Oh, I don't think so, I cut him off. Silence. Let me be very clear, I continued, my voice ice cold. I don't want my position back. I don't want Neurosync back. The company you all chose to betray, it doesn't exist anymore. Another silence, then, finally, what do you want? I smiled. Nothing. I just wanted you all to know what it feels like to lose everything. And with that, I hung up again. At 10 in the morning, Lillian's breaking point arrived. I expected another call from her, but it never came. Not yet. Instead, she showed up at my door, unannounced, desperate for the first time since this entire thing started. I saw her without the armor. No carefully curated confidence, no practiced smirk, no polished arrogance. She was pale, her hands clenched into fists, her lips pressed so tightly together they were almost white. And her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were now filled with something else, fear. I let the moment stretch before I spoke. To what do I owe the pleasure? I asked. She exhaled sharply, her jaw tightening. Let me in, she said. I didn't move. No. Her nostrils flared. Marcus, I don't have time for this. Neither do I said, crossing my arms, watching as she struggled to hold herself together. We can fix this, she said finally. There is no we anymore, Lillian, I replied. For the first time in her life, she looked unsure, and I was just getting started. There's a moment in every disaster when people finally understand that there's no fixing it. Not through quick patches, not through damage control, not through carefully crafted PR statements. That moment had arrived for Neurosync. By the time Lillian showed up at my door, her empire was already burning, but she wasn't here to admit defeat. No, Lillian didn't know how to lose. She thought she could talk her way out of this, the same way she had talked her way into power, into money, into convincing an entire industry that she was the genius behind Neurosync's success. She still believed she could fix it. She still believed she could fix me. But I had already decided she wasn't getting out of this alive. Not her company, not her reputation, and definitely not her pride. She was standing at my doorstep, looking at me like she was trying to find an angle, something she could use, something she could manipulate. Marcus, we can fix this, she said. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Fix what? I asked, pretending to be confused. You made it very clear I had no place in Neurosync. You had security drag me out of my own boardroom. You told me I was nothing without you. So, what exactly are we fixing? Her lips pressed together so tightly that for a second I thought she might crack a tooth. You've made your point, she said, inhaling sharply. Congratulations, you got your revenge. Now, let's be rational adults and clean up this mess before we both lose everything. I almost laughed. Before we both lose everything? I repeated, like I was the one with something left to lose, like she hadn't already taken everything from me. I tilted my head, studying her. And what exactly do you think I want? She hesitated. That told me everything I needed to know. She had no idea. She had spent so long assuming she had complete control over me, over my emotions, my ambitions, my entire life, that she had never even considered what would happen if I decided to burn it all down. And now she was looking into the eyes of the man she had underestimated. I let her sit in that silence for a long moment before I answered. I don't want anything, Lillian, I said. Her brow furrowed. What? You thought I was going to beg to come back? That I was going to negotiate? That I'd want to salvage what's left of your company? I took a slow step forward, watching as she fought the instinct to step back. "Oh no, Lillian," I said, my voice cold. "I don't want Neurosync back. I want you to watch it burn." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard, and for the first time since this war started, I saw real fear in her eyes, because she finally understood. This wasn't about leverage. This wasn't about me trying to force my way back into the company. This was personal, and I wasn't going to stop until there was nothing left of what she built. By the time Lillian left my doorstep, the damage had already spread far beyond Neurosync's walls. Stock prices had plummeted, nearly 50% in just a few hours. Investors were pulling out faster than the company could react. And the media? Oh, the media had smelled blood in the water. News headlines were everywhere. Ponri, who really built Neurosync? The man behind the AI steps into the spotlight. From powerhouse to pariah. The unraveling of Lillian Carter. Every journalist, every media outlet that had once worshipped her was now tearing her apart, because the story had changed. No longer was she the visionary. No longer was she the genius behind Neurosync's success. Now she was the fraud, the woman who stole an empire only to lose it all in a matter of days. Inside Neurosync, chaos ruled. The boardroom was in full meltdown. Investors were fleeing. Clients were backing out of contracts faster than they could draft legal statements. And the stock price? It had dropped so fast that trading had been temporarily halted. Lillian had once held this room with an iron grip. Now she wasn't even allowed inside, because as of 4:45 in the afternoon, the board had officially removed her as CEO. The company had no leader, no stability, no product to sell, and worst of all, no future. At exactly 6 in the evening, my phone rang. Lillian. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Marcus," she said. Her voice was different this time, not angry, not arrogant, not demanding, just hollow. I didn't say anything. I let her speak first. "I lost everything," she said. There was no venom behind it, no blame, no attempt to twist the knife back into me. Just acceptance. I took a slow breath, leaning back in my chair. "I know," I said. Another pause, then, softer, she asked, "Was this always your plan?" "No," I admitted. "Not at first." "But then you gave me no choice." She exhaled sharply, as if she had been holding her breath. "I never thought you'd fight back," she said, almost to herself. I chuckled. "That was your first mistake." A long silence stretched between us. Then, finally, she asked the question I knew had been weighing on her the most. "What happens now?" I let the words hang in the air before answering. "You disappear, Lillian," I said. I heard her breath hitch. "They won't let me," she whispered. "They already have," I replied. Another pause, then barely above a whisper, she asked, "And you?" I smiled, glancing at my laptop screen, where the first draft of my next venture was already in motion. "Me? I start over, without you." And then, for the last time, I hung up. As the dial tone echoed in my ear, I leaned back, staring at the city skyline from my apartment window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the buildings that once symbolized our shared success. Neurosync was crumbling, but I felt no remorse, only a quiet resolve. Starting over wasn't just a phrase, it was my new reality. I had the patent, the original code, and years of untapped ideas. Lillian had taken the spotlight, but she never truly understood the tech. That was my domain. The next few weeks blurred into a frenzy of activity. I rented a modest office space in a quiet tech hub, far from the flashy towers of our old empire. No boardrooms, no investors breathing down my neck, just me, a laptop, and a whiteboard covered in algorithms. I called it Synapse Reborn, a nod to what Neurosync could have been without the greed. The core AI was mine, refined over sleepless nights. I stripped away the bloat Lillian had added for show, useless features that prioritized profit over innovation. This new system was leaner, smarter, capable of predictive adaptations that could revolutionize industries beyond what we ever dreamed. Word spread quickly. Former colleagues, the ones Lillian had sidelined or fired for loyalty to me, reached out. "Marcus, we always knew it was you," one emailed. I hired a small team, engineers who valued code over corporate politics. We worked like startups do. Pizza-fueled marathons, debates over coffee, breakthroughs at dawn. No hierarchies, everyone had a voice. It felt pure, like those early days in my dimly lit apartment. Meanwhile, Lillian's fall was spectacular. Headlines screamed, "Disgraced CEO faces lawsuits, Neurosync bankruptcy looms." She tried to pivot, starting a consulting firm, but no one trusted her. Investors blacklisted her. The industry whispered about the thief in the boardroom. I heard through mutual contacts. She sold the penthouse, moved to a smaller place. Part of me wondered if she'd reflect, but I doubted it. Lillian was a survivor, but survivors need something to survive on. Without Neurosync, she was adrift. 6 months later, Synapse Reborn launched its beta. We targeted ethical AI applications, healthcare diagnostics, environmental modeling, things that mattered. The response was overwhelming. Venture capitalists who once fawned over Lillian now courted me. I turned most down. I wanted control this time. One deal stuck, a partnership with a nonprofit focused on AI for good. No mergers, no share dilutions, just collaboration. One evening, as I reviewed code, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered cautiously. Marcus, her voice weaker than before. Lillian, I need to talk. I paused, curiosity winning. What could you possibly want? She sighed. I was wrong. About everything. Can we meet? Maybe rebuild something? I laughed softly. Rebuild? Lillian, you burned that bridge. I'm building alone now, and it's better. Silence. Then please. The word hung there, but I felt nothing. Goodbye, Lillian. I hung up, blocking the number. Life moved on. I met someone new. A fellow engineer at a conference. No drama, just shared passions. Synapse grew, hitting its first 1 million users. Awards followed, but I kept it humble. The patent? It stayed mine, a reminder that true power isn't in empires but in creation. Looking back, betrayal forged me. Lillian took the company, but she gave me freedom. And in the end, that's what won.